Hey YouTube, it's Robert Hall, and in this BTS journal, we're going to go over some shots that I've recently captured and talk about the lighting setups and thought process behind them. My channel is sponsored by Adorama, which buys me the time to create these type of videos without the influence from any specific camera brand. I personally shop at Adorama for their great deals on a wide selection of products, as well as their support of those products down the road. This video isn't about any specific gear, but if you're interested in any of the gear that I use, I've got my kit.com link in the description below, as well as links to the equipment that were used in the making of these images. So if you're interested in any of that, you can find links in the description. So all of these portraits today are portraits that I captured while I was in Texas. I was recently in Texas for something called the Creative Mixer that was in Dallas. And before I went to Dallas for the Creative Mixer, I went and visited Francisco Joel Hernandez, and we filmed a bunch of content on various products such as the Magbox, the V1, the ProPhoto A1. You guys have probably seen all that content by now, but we also did quite a few portrait sessions while we were there. So first off, today's video is more portraits as opposed to the editorial portraits that I typically capture. Although most of these are outdoors, there's also some studio setups in here. So in this BTS journal, there's a little bit less of a focus on story and more of a focus on just creating images. So the first image we're going to talk about, this was shot with the A7R III and the 50mm 1.4 and a single light. Now what drew me to this location was all of these repeating lines that are actually stairs. I really like the geometry that they created across the image, especially with the way that the sun was hitting them. So our sun direction is coming from the left and is actually completely hitting our subject, and it's also creating all these cool shadow patterns that you see on the steps, which is what I liked most about this location. So the first thing I did was I stopped down the ambient exposure. I did that until all these highlights on the steps were basically midtones, as well as any of the highlights on her face from the sunlight were brought down to midtones as well. So you can see right here kind of the shadow caused by the sun. The sun is directly hitting her right in here, but we've got our flash pretty much balanced with that sunlight, and where the sun cuts off and creates a shadow, we're a little bit underexposed, although it's not too harsh. I used a single off-camera light source. I used the Magbox for this one with two 8200s. Now I did not use high-speed sync. You can see there's a shallow depth of field here, but I did not use high-speed sync because I knew that we were towing the line using the Magbox and having it a ways away out of frame, shooting at 50mm. I knew that in high-speed sync, those 8200s wouldn't quite cut it. So right here, I've got an ND filter. And if you haven't seen that video, you guys can check it out. I've got an ND filter that allows me to stay in standard sync while having a very wide aperture, which creates the background separation between the model and the background. So in this image, the sun is still technically my key light because it's my brightest light source. It's the light source that is carving out all of this side and creating highlights. The Magbox is essentially a fill light. That is what is creating these midtone values right in here, and across her leg, and then it still kind of fills in some of the harsh shadows that were created by the sunlight. The two 8200s in standard sync were, I believe, around 1/4 power here, and this was used with the focus diffuser, which does give you a little bit more light. And I did recently review the Magbox, so if you're interested in seeing more about that, you can check out that video right up here. So in this image, same subject. We're also still using the Magbox because this is when we were working on the Magbox content. Very impressed with the Magbox in this instance because this is great, beautiful beauty lighting. We got a huge catch light from the Magbox as well. This just worked really nicely. So the subject is just out of the sunlight in this image, but the sunlight is hitting all of this greenery behind her. So by having her in the shade, that gives us complete control with the lighting, since she's going to be really dark in comparison to the background. That allows wherever we add lighting, we get full control here. You can see in this shade side right here that it's a little bit cooler of a temperature. Because the light is coming from a shady region, it takes on a blue characteristic because it's a higher Kelvin temperature. Again, all these images are shot with the A7R III, but this one was photographed using the Sigma MC11 adapter along with the 200mm from Canon lens adapted to Sony. People have spoken highly of it, but man, using all native glass, I did not enjoy that experience at all. I thought that that thing was almost impossible to focus. In fact, a majority of the photos that I captured with it, I just ended up using manual focus because it was far easier. And you can see at 200mm f2, we get such rapid fall off. I mean, this front eye is sharp. We've got great detail around the eyebrow. Obviously, this has already been sharpened, but I mean, by the time we get to her hair, just, 3 inches back, completely drifted out of focus, and then we get some awesome bokeh in the background with just all those greens being hit by the sunlight, greens, yellows, reds from the flowers, all kind of melding in together and just creating this really nice colorful background. Before I actually post this somewhere, I'm really likely to come into this top right corner and fill it in with, details from here, just because I think it's kind of a distracting part of the image and I'd rather fill it in. Maybe this bottom right corner as well. Just fill it all in with colors from the rest of the image so it has a more seamless background. So the MC11 adapter, maybe it's better on other lenses, but man, I did not love it using that 200mm f2. Thanks for letting me try it though, Roland. Up next, this is shot using a very popular modifier, one that I have not actually spent a lot of time with. This was shot using a Photex soft lighter, which just has a really big following. A lot of people love that light. Personally, I always like softboxes more than I like reflective umbrellas, strictly because they create a more conical pattern of light. But I gotta say, I really like how it looked in this image. You can see at the bottom here, tacos before vatos, so some hip store, and they had all these TVs that had the static and writing on them. I thought it was a pretty cool storefront to capture a photo of. If you see on the left side, there's these credit card. This is the credit cards that they accept here. So before posting, I'll probably actually go 4:5 ratio, something like that to get rid of it. But this is how it was captured, so I wanted to show it to you like that. Simple, one light setup, Photex soft lighter. Really even light, really does a great job at filling in the shadows. Like, even though it was above her, it's filling in the shadows and wrinkles in the t-shirts here. I really like how it looked. Awesome for the face, for shaping the face. Does a great job for highlighting the cheekbones, giving you structure underneath the cheekbones. Just overall shaping the face, I think it's really great for that. Now, I did use the Godox V1 for this, so this is a speed light, not so much a strobe that we're using. It's still a strobe, but a smaller portable speed light off camera, and it performed great. This is later in the evening, so we're not competing with any sunlight or anything like that, but I still find that impressive because it's a very small light. We've got it bouncing, and then it's diffused, and it's a few feet away from the subject. All of those things, and the V1 still performed really well, so I was definitely impressed with that V1 overall, like actually its capabilities off camera and how far you can get it away. It kind of surprised me because there's some situations where I even used it in really bright conditions and it performed really well. HSS outdoors though, that V1's not going to cut it. But if you guys want to see more about that product, I've also made a V1 comparison to the A1 and a V1 comparison to the V860 this month. I'll put those videos right here too. All right, here we got a photo of Lindsay Duell. We got her in the blue bonnets. This was once we were in Dallas, so I'm out of South Texas at this point, and we had to get a photo in here. We took great care not to trample all over all of these blue bonnets. I know that's a very hot topic right now, is how far photographers will go for a shot. We did everything we could to respect the environment while still maintaining the shot, but hey, you might have a different opinion on that. But I really like Lindsay's choice of wearing blue because we were going out looking for these blue bonnets, which were in bloom this specific time of year. Now, the interesting thing is that just out of frame, these blue bonnets just disappear. Like, it goes into just greenery, shrubs, whatever. But by filling the frame with it, you have no idea how big this field is. And so that's just kind of a testament to cropping. It's not about just what you show in an image, it's about what you don't show. And had we shown a more expansive area of this would have been a completely different image. So I really like the use of cropping in this image to completely fill the frame with blue bonnets. In terms of lighting, single light in a softbox, camera right to illuminate her. She's completely backlit because this was during sunset and the sunset was happening behind her. At first I was photographing with the sky in the background, but there was no interest in the background. It was just basically bright, kind of orangish light, no clouds, no details, so I decided that it just looked better if I instead pointed the camera downward a little bit and just showed kind of an endless look with the blue bonnets. This is the one studio shot that I'm going to share from this week because I just love how it looked. I really like the lighting setup on here. I really like the backdrop, which I kind of swore off these style backdrops. It looks like an old muslin background, and I don't know, they seem to fall out of fashion in the last 10 years, but I really like how it looks. This backdrop is from Kate Backdrop, and this was during the creative mixer that we were doing. So we actually have a 5 light setup here. First off, there's an 8600 Pro, simply illuminating the background, standard reflector, very simple. On the right and the left of the subject, we have strip boxes, cheetah strip boxes, Both of those have 8200s in them. The one camera right has a blue gel, the one camera left has a red gel. Then over top the subject, we also have a reflector and a grid, and that had a purple gel. So the whole idea here is we can throw purple towards her in the middle, and then we have blue and red on the sides kind of coming together. Those two strip boxes on the side do a great job of highlighting her body while putting in some little splashes of color, although the red was kind of neutralized. The hair light illuminates her hair and gives her this purple color in the background. And then the key light was a massive Cheetah RB180. The fall off on the body is incredible. We've got it really close. It goes from really bright to really dark in a really short distance, so it's really great for shaping and contouring the body, all while having a really soft light and soft character to those transitions. You can see it also falls off down the frame really quickly, where her legs at the bottom of the frame are almost completely dark. But it's a great way of kind of calling attention to a specific part of the body. And I really loved her hair, so I wanted the attention to kind of go to her face and her hair, which is what you normally want to do in a portrait. So I love how this 5-light setup came out, which is why I'm sharing it with you guys. And all of this was kind of a collaboration with Kerwan Celestine. He had some gel work going, and then we kind of built this lighting setup together. Love how it turned out. And might have to buy one of these Cape backdrops for myself. And for the last shot, we've got Brie again. This was the following day where we actually went on location in Dallas and shot around there. This place was called the Fabrication Yard, and it was just a ton of like steel buildings and graffiti everywhere. So I love the overall street aesthetic of both the model's attire as well as the location. Now the first thing that I noticed when we walked in here is how dark it was compared to how bright it was outside. Pure sunlight overhead outdoors, so that's why it was nice to work inside, but that also gives us a ton of contrast. So we've got a very dark interior environment, but the first thing I saw was all these cracks in the steel, and I thought, man, if we can get some light coming through there, then we can actually get some interesting things happening in the background. However, we didn't have atmosphere aerosol, which is a tool that I'll use to add texture to the air, and we didn't have any of that, so we tried the next best thing, which was hairspray, which worked out really great. So what you see here is we have an 8600 Pro outdoors outside the back of this wall firing in through these cracks. Then we have people spraying hairspray to add texture to the air, and that just means that the light will actually be captured because it's hitting all those particles in the air. We kind of stomped up dust, did whatever we can to add particles to the air so that they would catch the light and therefore show the camera the light as it's passing through. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it at all. And lighting the subject, we have an RB90P. That is Cheetah's newest softbox. Have that lighting the subject. Now on camera left, you can't really see it because it's all been cloned out by my editor, Alex. But there was an 8200 that we mounted over here, and for some of the images I actually shot a blue light into the background, and I thought that looked really cool, but I also thought that in this image she just popped out more when the background behind her was very dark, so this turned out to be one of my favorites. This was photographed using the Zeiss 35mm 1.4, and I think I shot it at like f1.8, and the whole purpose of that was, despite being a wide angle, I didn't want the background to be hyper detailed. I still want my subject to pop off of it a little bit. So we're shooting at a very wide aperture because she's in really close proximity to the background, so to create background separation, we need a really wide aperture. And for the last shot, we're going back to another portrait of Sam here. We got her hanging out by some stairs. Really like the pose, really like the glasses, her eyes just peeking out right above the glasses. This was actually a little bit challenging to nail focus. I missed on a ton of these, but this was done with a shoot-through umbrella, and I honestly don't remember off the top of my head if this was the Godox V1 or the Profoto A1. Doesn't make a difference. It was a round head speed light. I've showed you guys how similar they are. But it was with a shoot-through umbrella, which is something that I almost never use, and really liked how this looked. I had it pushed all the way to the limit just so that it could provide a little bit of pop on her face in this otherwise really bright scene. You can see the sunlight creeping through here, but even being that the sun was behind her, it was still really bright where she was at. So this light only did a tiny bit of specular highlights right in the front, and otherwise the fill is just from the natural environment here. But yeah, that was the first time that I've used a shoot-through umbrella in quite some time. For me, I've kind of sworn off shoot-through umbrellas because they just throw light everywhere. But the one area where that doesn't really matter is outside. Like if you're not seeing the spill on the ground, you're not seeing spill on the wall behind the subject, anything like that, then it doesn't really matter where the umbrella is sending light to. So this is one instance where you can kind of get away with an umbrella and not have any negative effects of it on your image by spilling light and throwing it all over your environment. Alright guys, that's it for this version of the BTS Journal. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hope you guys learned something from these shots. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos, and until next time, keep on shooting.